The fire detector details page is the second page of an assessment report if you chose to include it in your printout when you were generating the report, and I strongly encourage that you always include the fire detector details page because I think perhaps even more important than the results, this is one of, if not the most important page in the assessment report. Certainly one of the most valuable because it tells you the tag number of every detector that was used in running the assessment. It gives you the make and model of the detector. If it's a detector that has more than one sensitivity setting, it will tell you the sensitivity setting that was used or modeled in the assessment. And we can get or see the assessment sensitivity used. If this is anything other than 100, you will be able to check that and make sure that you use the setting that you want to use. You can see the technology base, whether that is visual, triple IR, UV IR, UV, and you can see whether this is a new detector or what you're calling a new detector, if it's an existing detector that was part of your baseline layout, if it was relocated to try and improve the coverage. You can get the X, Y, and Z coordinates of every detector. Whenever we are importing a model, we are always using the coordinate system that the client used in their original 3D Navisworks model that they provided us. And so this is going to correspond to the client's X, Y, Z coordinates. For the Z coordinate, if you entered in the DEC-Z for the assessment, what you're going to get here is not going to be the absolute Z coordinate of the detector. It is going to be the ALD or above local DEC setting or elevation for the detector, which means this is not Z equals 4 meters in the model. This is telling me that if I measure up from the floor 4 meters, this should be 4 meters above the deck or above grade or above the ground. I can next see the pan and tilt of the detector. This tells me which direction the detector is looking in and how it's angled relative to the horizontal. And then last but certainly not least, we get the detector contributions breakdown, which tells me how much each individual detector can see of the graded volume and tells me how each detector contributes to the voted coverage. So I can see that detector 1, or DET01, can see 69.8% of the graded volume. Detector 2, or DET02, can see about 48.4% of the graded volume. This is the total graded volume, not for medium risk or low risk. On the all detectors row, I can see that I get 99.1% 1 out of n coverage. However, if detector 2 goes into fault and I only have 4 detectors working, then my 1 out of n coverage goes down to 97.6%. You're looking at a different detector. If detector 5 goes into fault, but detectors 1 through 4 are working, then my 1 out of n coverage drops to 96.7%. If I look at 2 out of n coverage, I have 93.4% coverage if all 5 detectors are working. However, if detector 1 goes into fault, then my 2 out of n coverage drops to 83.2%. So this lets me look to see how my coverage is impacted by detector faults. It lets me know which detectors are doing the heavy lifting, like detector 5, which can see 71.3% or 71.8% of the graded volume, where some other detectors might be seeing relatively little. And so detector 1 and detector 5, in terms of percent contribution, are doing more than detector 2. But it also lets us see how a fault impacts our different coverage levels, and it lets me see which detectors are more important to, say, 2 out of n coverage versus 1 out of n coverage. This is particularly important in that this lets us check for where I might have a problem. Like if I'm seeing mostly 40s and 50s and 60s, but I have a detector that's only seeing 20% of the graded volume, I might want to look at that detector to see if there's something wrong or if there's something blocking that detector's field of view, or if there's something I might be able to do to rotate or shift that detector up and down to improve the coverage and improve the performance and the bang for the buck that I'm getting out of that detector. Additionally, even if I'm seeing high individual coverage from a detector, if I look at a detector and find that it is not doing much to improve my overall coverage, that might be an opportunity for me to reduce my detector count by taking out a detector that's not really doing much for me. For instance, if I look at detector 4 and find that it's only improving my 1 out of n coverage by 0.3%, that may not be good enough for me. But then I might also see that if 2 out of n coverage is important to me, since getting rid of that is going to drop my percent coverage by over 1%, I might or might not consider that good enough to keep it.